Hello and welcome to the latest installment of Law & Order, the video series where I look at and unpack stories from games. In this one I'll be looking at the story from Sucker Punch's latest title, Ghost of Yotei. Quite a while ago I jumped into the story from Ghost of Tsushima. Playing that game, which I actually didn't get into at first, it took me ages to get into it, I was blown away by the story, the beauty of the world and the characters. Now we've got a sequel in Ghost of Yotei, which is set during Japan's Edo period in the 1600s and takes place around 300 to 400 years after Ghost of Tsushima, which was set in 1274. The game doesn't have any particularly strong links to what happened in Tsushima, as this title features a standalone story. However, there is one particular side quest which does explain what happened to Jin Sakai after the events of Tsushima, so we'll look at that after the explanation of the plot. That's all I can particularly say about the game without spoiling things, and I don't want to waffle on too much, so here's your obligatory spoiler warning for Ghost of Yotei and Tsushima, so let's get into it. A young girl is on her hands and knees crying in front of a burning tree, and the bodies of her mother and father lay dead in front of her, and her brother is unaccounted for, presumed dead. 6 men known as the Yotei Six are standing in front of her, and the only one of them without a mask, their leader, known as Lord Saito, tells them to make an example of her. Before he leaves them to it, he tells the young girl he's sorry it came to this and calls her Little Wolf. He stabs her through the shoulder with a sword, pinning her to the tree. One of the Yotei Six stands and laughs at her and they leave her to die. 16 years after their brutal murder, Atsu has now returned home to Ezo, determined to avenge her family members by making each member of the Yotei Six suffer. Sitting by her campfire, Atsu draws their names one by one on a sash, calling each of their names out as she targets them. There's the man who laughed at her named the Snake, a man known as the Oni, another one known as the Kitsune, a pair named the Spider and the Dragon, and finally, Lord Saito. Tying the sash round her waist, she overlooks a small village and looks towards a furry friend of hers, a wolf. Heading through the village, Atsu spots 4 bandits tormenting a horse. Despite pleas from the villagers not to get involved, Atsu calms the horse and tells the bandits to apologize. Instead, they laugh and tell one of the men to bring her to the boss. They underestimate her and she cuts them all down. Going to speak with the boss, who sat there, it's none other than the Snake, one of her targets and one of the Yotei Six. He doesn't recognize her and full of jokes, he asks her for a light. Atsu sets the hut they are in alight, forcing them outside, and the Snake just carries on laughing. With Atsu having cut down all of his men, the Snake emerges and notices the sword that Atsu is carrying. He instantly recognizes her now and calls her Little Wolf. The two face off in battle, with Atsu having constant flashbacks due to the trauma she carries. At one point, he tries to shoot Atsu, but her wolf companion helps her out. Thanks to his use of dirty tricks and his skill, the Snake gets the upper hand and has her downed and stabs her through the stomach, but she stabs him repeatedly, killing him. However, it does seem that Atsu dies too, but she miraculously is not dead. Standing up, she wipes the blood of the Snake off of her sword onto his name on the sash. 1 down, 5 to go. Walking over to the horse she saved earlier on, she rides it and eventually arrives at her former family home. After reminiscing of better times with her family, when playing shamisen with her mother, she heads over to an old inn where she hopes to find out the locations of the other Yotei Six members, but rather quickly finds herself being, well, quite literally thrown out by Saito's goons. Fighting and defeating the bandits, Atsu speaks with one of the dying men, and he tells her that there's a bounty on her head, and that Lord Saito owns the island. Granting the man death, she then speaks with the owner of the inn, who thanks her for getting rid of the bandits. She also meets new allies, such as Ran, a bowyer, who was going to work for Saito until she found out she would be forced to do so without pay, and Kojiro, who offers bounties for various murderers and bandits on the island that need bringing to justice. She also meets men from Clan Matsumai, who have been commissioned by the shogunate to put an end to Lord Saito's grip on the north. They are initially hostile towards Atsu, but quickly realise that they have a common goal in getting rid of Lord Saito. If she's been enough of a nuisance to Lord Saito by liberating his outposts or homesteads in which he'd ousted the residents, or by disrupting his operation, he learns of this ghost, this Onryo that the locals speak about. Saito will put out a bounty on Atsu, and every so often she will be attacked by bandits and bounty hunters. Moving on, Atsu wonders if a certain dual katana master is still living on Mount Yotei, so she heads up there, and after a long ascent, she arrives. There doesn't seem to be anyone there, so she checks the place out and finds a katana there. She is confronted by a man with one arm, and his name is Hanbei. This is the dual katana master, except that he can no longer dual wield. She mentions to him that he commissioned this katana to be forged by Master Kengo. He's an old friend of Hanbei, and Atsu reveals to him that Master Kengo is her father, and Hanbei remembers Atsu. He thought that she died. Saying she wants to learn his dual katana technique, he scoffs and walks off with Atsu following him. Hearing that she's already killed the snake, and because she is the daughter of his old friend, he gives Atsu a chance. Having hot coals thrown towards her and missing them due to only having one katana, Hanbei also tells her that she needs to strengthen her left arm to be as strong as her right in order to use dual katanas. He tells Atsu that she likely only beat the snake because he was drunk, and even so he had got the better of her before she had stabbed him repeatedly. He also tells Atsu that she's really only managed to survive this long because she is stubborn. Nonetheless, he agrees to train her. At first light, Hanbei has her cut through bamboo with her left arm, and as expected, she's having some trouble. But she is getting stronger. Eventually, she is able to cut through all 7 pieces of bamboo. Now with equal strength in both arms and receiving another sword forged by her father, she cuts every piece of hot coal. She soon gets a chance to try out her new technique and uses one katana against enemies with the katana, and dual katanas against enemies with spears, which will be handy, as Lord Saito is a master of both. Defeating the invaders, Hanbei is able to recognize that these men, Saito's men, were trained at an old fortress in Tokachi Range, where Saito is training new recruits. Before leaving, Hanbei tries to talk her out of what she wants to do, but her mind is resolute. Riding across the plains, Atsu approaches the fortress and gives a password to gain access. The guard at the door recognizes her though as the Onryo, and despite their best efforts, she sneaks into the fortress. She spots Lord Saito, and spots that he's heading into the fort. Needing to get close to him, she spots a gap in a fence that she can use in order to climb into the main part of the fort. Using this and sneaking through, she reaches a balcony overlooking Lord Saito, speaking with some of his men about how recruitment has slowed down since the snake was killed. They all speak of Atsu, no idea that it is her that is the Onryo they speak of. Saito says that this superstition that this woman is an Onryo fuels her legend, and they cannot let it grow. Seizing her chance, she attempts to assassinate Lord Saito but fails. Picking up her sword, Saito notices the mark on it, and he instantly knows that this is Master Kengo's daughter. He is shocked as he thought her dead. Calling her Little Wolf only enrages her. Leading her out to an open area, he reminds her that not one lord in the north named Atsu is samurai. He says that the Matsumai don't want warriors like him and her, but they want loyal dogs. The two then fight, and this is where Hanbei's technique comes in handy. At some point during their fight, Lord Saito's men tell him that the Matsumai have arrived at the fort and have breached the gate, and an explosion halts their fight, and Lord Saito leaves. Atsu, dazed from the blast, passes out and is dragged from the fort by Hanbei. Coming to, Hanbei says that Saito is gone and he has escaped. Hanbei reveals that it was him who told the Matsumai where Lord Saito was because he didn't want Atsu to get herself killed. She says that she needs to be more careful now and that she needs to draw him out. Hanbei tells her that he hopes that she finds what she's looking for, and he leaves. She now needs to go after the other members of the Yotei Six, in any order she pleases. In terms of my game, it's time to go after the most elusive and mysterious member of the Yotei Six, the Kitsune or the Fox. Conversations and encounters with people in Ezo reveal that the Kitsune is known as a phantom, with eyes everywhere, and that people have been vanishing without a trace around a place called Teshia Ridge. The Kitsune is also known as a fox demon, so Atsu will need to go to the frozen wilds of Teshia Ridge to hunt him down. Everyone fears him except for a Master Enomoto, who is an expert in the Kusarigama, but he hardly ever leaves the mountain. Thanks to the confessions of a defeated bandit, in my game at least, Atsu learns of a way to get to Teshia Ridge. Following the Nupa River all the way north, heading as far north as she can go, Atsu takes the ferry to Teshia Ridge. There she meets a community of Ainu people, an indigenous ethnic group considered to be the native people of Edo. Moving forward, Atsu comes across a group of people struggling to tame their horse. Helping them calm it down, they blame the horse being spooked on Teshia Ridge, attracting spirits. They offer Atsu a job escorting them to a place known as the Red Crane Inn, and she accepts. Not long into their trek, passing through a snowstorm, they want to take shelter in a nearby cave, and one of the men points out blue lights. He mentions Kitsunebi. They are then attacked by a group of shinobi who emerge from the snow. One of the frightened men mentions this group is a group known as the Nine Tails. Atsu fights them, but she spots the Kitsune there. She is knocked out by a kunai, which itself is coated in poison, and she collapses, passing out, whilst the men she was escorting are all killed by the Nine Tails, but her friend, the wolf, comes to her rescue. Coming to, freezing and injured, Atsu finds her way into the cave the men mentioned, where she lights a fire, getting herself warm. Emerging out into Teshia Ridge, Atsu gets the lay of the land and spots the Red Crane Inn, heading down to it. Arriving and entering the inn, Atsu beats some of the Matsumai clan at a game she used to play with her mother, called Zeni Hajiki. After this, the men tell Atsu to speak with their commander in regard to the kitsune. Catching the commander getting ready for some downtime, he says that he won't tell her anything, calling her a dirty mercenary. With the men downstairs laughing at her for falling for their setup, a settler introduces the inn's shamisen player Oyuki, who is nicknamed the Songbird of Ezo. She plays for the people in the inn, and this takes Atsu back to when her mother used to play for her. During the performance, the Matsumai samurai start to heckle Oyuki by telling her to play something more lively as they want to dance. So, Atsu offers them a dance by way of a fist fight, which he goes on to win. The commander is not happy and he tells his men to execute Atsu. But Oyuki makes him see reason, telling him that Lord Matsumai won't be too happy hearing about his men being beaten by a lone wanderer, and, not just that, a woman. The commander agrees that this never happened, but doesn't want to see Atsu's face again. Oyuki tells Atsu to meet her outside, and doing so, she tells Atsu that the kitsune is the leader of the Nine Tails, and that almost everyone in Teshia Ridge has been affected by them in one way or another by kidnapping or scaring off people working and living there. Taking Atsu to a lead on where the kitsune is, Oyuki leads her to a small shrine where settlers place offerings for protection. She says that someone from the Nine Tails will come to collect these offerings. Placing their own offering on the shrine, they wait, and after Oyuki mentions that the kitsune took something from her, some Nine Tails show up, but they draw some strange symbols on the rocks that they may be using in order to communicate with one another. Tailing them, being careful not to be seen, Atsu and Oyuki have to split up and go after different groups. After a fight with a bunch of the Nine Tails, Atsu questions one. Being asked where the kitsune is, the man laughs and cuts his own throat. Oyuki shows up saying that she lost the ones she was tailing, and looking in the Nine-Tailed guy's shoes, she finds a piece of paper telling Atsu that she used to hide her song lyrics in her shoes when she was travelling. Anyway, on the paper is another symbol, possibly indicating the location of a hideout. Telling Oyuki her name, she seems to recognise it, and using the map she discovers an altar there, and solving a puzzle she gains access to it. She discovers it's a training ground. Fighting more Nine Tails and defeating them, Atsu ascends and moves around the mountain, and eventually, after defeating yet more of them, finds a piece of paper. And on this paper is a cipher with codes on it, used by the Nine Tails, which explains the symbols on the rocks. Using the cipher to leave the training ground, Atsu is frustrated that the kitsune was not there, but happy that she found the cipher. In the meantime, Atsu finds a load of owl and bear carvings and hears shouting. She finds Master Enomoto, the Kusarigama expert there, under attack by the Nine Tails. Helping him take them out, Atsu conveys to him that she wants to learn how to use the Kusarigama. He's initially reluctant to share his wisdom with her, but just like Hanbei did, he agrees to do so. After some intensive training, Atsu learns the basics of this useful weapon. Enomoto explains that his grandson joined the Nine Tails after he saw anger in him and refused to train him in the way of the Kusarigama. Now his grandson wants to kill him to heal a wound. With their training done, for now, Atsu continues on in her hunt for the kitsune. Back at the Red Crane Inn, speaking with Oyuki, she says that the Matsumai have been tracking the kitsune for months, and that they may be able to help find their hideout. So going upstairs, they sneak into a secret passage behind the rooms of the inn, and overhear him talk of an informant called Chosuke. Whilst Oyuki distracts Commander Fujita, Atsu searches his room. She finds the location where they're set to meet Chosuke, and going to the Nakajima Sake house, Atsu changes, albeit rather reluctantly, into a kimono and performs the shamisen alongside Oyuki, and eavesdropping on conversations, they identify Chosuke. Spiking his sake with a parasite to make him throw up outside, they question Chosuke about the cipher, and he says that he saw the symbols on a piece of fabric at a dye house near the river, at which the owner has been acting strange and refusing to sell even to long-time customers. So going there, it's deserted, but they do find the symbols. An odd place to have these symbols at a simple dye house. Solving the cipher and going down a hole in the floor, they are in some sort of tunnel network. They discover the Nine Tails are there as they are keeping prisoners. Taking out the shinobi and freeing their prisoners, the Dye Master is among them. She says that the kitsune told her that he'd burn down her workshop if she didn't turn away all of her customers, but that she rebelled when the kitsune started taking prisoners. She says there are more prisoners further into the tunnel, so Oyuki takes these people to the surface, and Atsu goes off in search of the other prisoners. She soon finds them, but they are dead, with them having been killed in different ways, like they've been poisoned. It's clear the kitsune has been using these prisoners as test subjects for something. Clearing out the Nine Tails there, Atsu solves another cipher puzzle and inside a shack she finds a puzzle box. It doesn't look like it opens like any other puzzle box, so she takes it back to Oyuki. Showing it to her after hearing Oyuki playing shamisen for the family who were captured and having a flashback to the night her mother was killed, she says that the puzzle box has pressure points, and she opens it. Another piece of paper is inside, and on it is a list of ingredients in order to make a poison, along with the location of a harvesting site. Oyuki says that she'll meet Atsu there later. Meeting her, they scout the harvesting site, but its entrance is behind a Matsumai camp, who it seems has been tipped off as to its location. Entering the camp as they need to find the kitsune before the samurai scare him off, and distracting a guard, they get into the harvesting site. Moving through the Nine Tails and solving more ciphers, they overlook the actual site itself, and this is where they are making poison using wolfsbane. They spot the kitsune. Unfortunately, the Matsumai samurai begin their assault, and they need to move on the kitsune. Running up the hill, Atsu confronts him and they fight. After a long fight, the kitsune asks Atsu if she thinks that he was the first kitsune, and he uses another of the poisoned kunai, and this affects Atsu as she starts to lose it. Oyuki then enters the fight, disarming the kitsune with the kusarigama. Atsu then collapses, with her being taken to safety by Oyuki, who says that the kitsune fled. However, when walking with Oyuki, Atsu starts to hallucinate, seeing the kitsune dressed in black and not in white. Surprised that Oyuki knows how to fight, and pretty well too, Atsu approaches a hallucination of her mother, experiencing a flashback to her mother being killed by Saito. She remembered that her mother sang to her before Saito hung her, and that the kitsune actually comforted Atsu, telling her to run. With Atsu unable to move yet, despite having been given an antidote, Oyuki confirms that she is the original kitsune, there on the night of the burning tree. This is how she knew about the Nine Tails hiding things in their shoes, the pressure points on the puzzle box, and why the new kitsune had no idea what Atsu was talking about when she told him who she was. Oyuki tells Atsu that she's not her enemy, but that when she's able to regain her strength, to meet her at a location which she's drawn on a map, saying that she'll prove that she's not her enemy. So, recovering from the toxin, Atsu goes to an old graveyard. Oyuki is there as promised and tells Atsu that the moment Saito placed the noose around her mother's neck, she was as good as dead. She says that she wants to help Atsu kill Lord Saito and the rest of the Yotei Six. She explains that she was the kitsune, but not anymore, as Lord Saito put the new one in charge, called Dojun, after Oyuki tried to turn the Nine Tails against Saito. They end up fighting, but she tells Atsu that killing her would only do Saito a favour, as she knows him better than his own sons do. She says that she can help Atsu fight like one of the Nine Tails, like a shinobi. The shinobi protect Saito and the kitsune oversees them. Killing the kitsune would leave Saito vulnerable. She says she has no interest in becoming the kitsune again, and Atsu agrees to abandon their fight, for now at least, so Oyuki can teach her the techniques of the shinobi, passed down through generations of Oyuki's family. She teaches her how to truly listen to what's around her, to listen in order to know where her enemy is using nature and to hear movement. Oyuki teaches Atsu how to use smoke bombs in order to make a quick escape when surrounded by enemies. Finding an abandoned village which used to house settlers until Dojun had them kidnapped to test his poison, Atsu uses her new skills in order to take them out. Afterwards, building a fire and sleeping, they head back to the graveyard at dawn, and it's now time for Atsu's final lesson: to resist the effects of Dojun's toxin by differentiating between what's real and what is not. Fighting Oyuki whilst under the effects of the toxin, she's able to overcome it. Oyuki gives Atsu the chance to avenge her family. However, Atsu chooses to let forgiveness win, clearly seeing that Oyuki is not the kitsune anymore, and she crosses the kitsune's name off of her sash. They agree they will go after the new kitsune, Dojun, in order to weaken Saito. Meeting Oyuki at the Red Crane Inn sometime later, they find it's been ransacked. All signs point to the Nine Tails. Finding the stable boy hiding upstairs named Shunpei, he says that the others there have been taken. He says the men's clothes were wet and that they smelled of flowers, a specific type that smell like rose and jasmine. Oyuki says there's a waterfall at the entrance of Teshio Ridge where these flowers are, and that's probably where they'll find the kitsune. Arriving at the frozen waterfall, they find an entrance to a large cave which they progress through, picking out any Nine Tails they encounter. Encountering and confronting the kitsune who tries to get inside Atsu's head, Atsu fights him whilst Oyuki keeps members of the Nine Tails busy. He tries to escape mid-fight by using smoke, but catching up to him, Oyuki joins in and they both fight and defeat the kitsune. Meanwhile, word gets back to Lord Saito that the kitsune is dead, and his sons express their nervousness that someone seems to be picking off members of their old gang. Saito has lost his spy master, and it's now time to move on to the next target, the Oni. Some tell Atsu that the Oni is a mad warlord who holds a castle on Ishigari Plain, and he's a man who is obsessed with fire. He's killed many brave samurai. According to a woman Atsu can meet in Ezo, he has a small army in Ishigari Plain who call themselves the Oni Raiders. She also learns that a Yari master called Sensei Takahashi tried to lead a rebellion against him but was forced into hiding on an island off the coast. This bounty hunter was kind enough to tell Atsu how to get to the Ishigari Plains before he died. So we're heading through the Golden Foothills in the Yotei grasslands and past a Matsumai checkpoint. Atsu spots a samurai atop a horse, who is addressed as Lord Kitamori. He is called into action straight away as some of the Oni's gang attack the checkpoint. This gang, part of the Oni Raiders, have been setting many fires around Ishigari Plain, and this is in keeping with the Oni's love of fire. Lord Kitamori learns of missing Matsumai samurai that were meant to arrive at the checkpoint but didn't, hence why there's so few samurai there. Taking Atsu with him, they find the armor of fallen samurai along the road, along with the dead horses of the Matsumai. Tracking footprints, they spot the Matsumai being burned alive by the raiders. In anger, Lord Kitamori assaults the raiders and he and Atsu cut them all down. After searching the raiders' camp up the hill, they find food and light a fire.
Where did you get that sword?
Off a dead man.
Don't lie to me.
He was my father's.
Atsu. It's me. You don't recognize your own brother. Really,
How are you alive?
a samurai found me and nursed me back to health. Atsu, I thought you were dead. If I'd known you had survived,
I buried mother and father. And then I sat under the tree and waited for days for you.
It took weeks just to gain the strength to walk again, and then... I couldn't go back. I have never been back. But we are together now. I want to hear everything.
Now being reunited with her brother she'd long thought dead, and after a long overdue catch-up and more fights with the Oni Raiders, they move on and arrive at the Matsumai camp. Jubei explains that according to the Matsumai, although the Onryo has been killing all their enemies, they are still considering the Onryo an outlaw. Speaking with Commander Wada, he's not really appreciative of Atsu's help and says that Clan Matsumai are there to bring order to the north, and to him at least, she's no better than the Yotei Six. He does however pay her for her assistance and tells her to leave. However, Jubei catches up to her and tells her that riding straight up to the Oni's castle is a one-way ticket. But he gives her a tip and says to start her search for ways to get to the Oni at the market. Now in Ishigari Plain and scouting out the area, Atsu identifies the market and the Oni's castle. Before she heads to the market, Atsu can choose to seek out the Yari master that she'd heard about. On the way, she can also come across the brutality of the Oni Raiders, terrorizing the locals and setting fire to things. Searching an area on the coast, Atsu is confronted by the Yari master and they fight. After a brief melee, he says that he was the first to organize the resistance against the Oni and his men, and that they hunt him to this day. He agrees to train Atsu in how to use the Yari, improving her accuracy by having her spear fish in midair. She is eventually strong enough, accurate enough, and skilled enough to use the Yari in combat. He goes on to tell Atsu that he used to have a dojo full of students, but that they suffered during his rebellion against the Oni. Some captured, most killed, and burned alive by the Oni. Her final lesson is to learn a strong kick, and she practices on the Yari master. Defeating some raiders with the Yari, the master says that she's ready to take these skills out with her, and gifts her a Yari that his greatest student had once used. He'll, in the meantime, repair his dojo, and Atsu says that she will be able to free his former students from the lumberyard, which is under the control of the Oni, as he's using the labour to repair the castle for Lord Saito. But that's for another time. Back to her hunt for the Oni. Going to the market Jubei mentioned, a sign mentions that this town bows to no one, not the Oni, his raiders, or any samurai. There, Atsu looks on the bounty board and sees a bounty for a Mad Goro, a treacherous raider who stole the Oni's prized musket. Since the Oni will personally reward anyone who undertakes this bounty, she can go and claim both Mad Goro and this musket as a way to get close to the Oni, so Atsu goes off in search of Mad Goro. Before she leaves though, she sees the barman from the sake house being mistreated by some Oni raiders, and they want to know where Mad Goro is. They threaten to take his arm, but Atsu steps in and defeats them. Speaking with the barman, he tells Atsu that he knows nothing, but he does offer her a drink on the house. Using that to enter the sake house, she sits down and starts to eavesdrop, but then Jubei shows up just as she's getting some tasty information. He buys these men some sake, and they mention a location, Iwami Village. More raiders show up and Jubei and Atsu take them down, thereafter heading to Iwami Village. The village had been burnt to a crisp by the raiders as retaliation for providing the Matsumai with supplies. Speaking with people there, they heard something that sounded like thunder behind a place known as Bear Rock. Gunfire. Going there, they find Mad Goro's camp and find that he used the musket to kill the pursuing raiders. He also urinated on a raider mask. Nice. Some Ronin turn up trying to claim Goro's bounty for themselves, but a fight takes place after they refuse to back down. Moving on, following Goro's trail, they are fired upon by Mad Goro. Jubei distracts him and Atsu climbs up and flanks him with a horse chase taking place and Goro throwing firebombs, but they do eventually capture him after Atsu defeats him in a duel. A disagreement takes place between Jubei and Atsu over what to do with Goro. Atsu obviously needs him to get close to the Oni, but Jubei wants to take him back to the Matsumai in order to use him for information on the Oni raiders and where they keep their prisoners. Atsu agrees to let him have Mad Goro for 24 hours and then she's taking him to the Oni. Jubei says that he'll meet Atsu under the Oni's castle and she departs. Meeting him a bit later on, he's there but without Mad Goro. Atsu is by all accounts understandably annoyed, but Jubei's hands are tied as Commander Wada refused to release him. He did, however, bring her the Oni's musket. She has a brainwave that she will use Jubei as a prisoner. Who better to bring the Oni than Clan Matsumai's very own Golden Boy? After she demands Mad Goro due to Jubei's refusal to be prisoner, he realizes that he has no choice but to agree. Changing into different clothes, they approach Ishigari Castle. They are let in and then are brought before the Oni himself. Jubei is taken to the holding cells by the jailer Kanta, and Atsu follows the Oni to collect her reward. Looking round whilst he counts it out, she spots her father's saya, a katana holder, requesting that as payment instead of coin. The Oni pays her anyway and allows her to take the saya too. Inviting her to stay for dinner, the Oni leaves and Atsu scouts out the holding cells. Attempting to pinch the keys off Kanta, the jailer, she is challenged to a fight by him. He's big and as a result, slow, and she defeats him, taking the keys whilst helping him up. The Oni congratulates her but says that he will not be present at the feast as he eats alone. After the feast, being told to leave the castle, Atsu instead sneaks around into the holding cells and she finds Jubei. Jubei wants to free the prisoners there at the castle and they agree that they'll do that after they have killed the Oni. Scaling the mountainside to get to the keep where the Oni's quarters are, they enter. Atsu is grabbed by the Oni, who is waiting for them. He says that he knew there was something off with Atsu, but he put it together shortly after she asked to keep her father's saya as payment. The Oni throws her out of the window and Jubei goes after her. Landing on some scaffolding, they make a mad dash for the exit whilst being shot at by the Oni's soldiers. Getting to the horses, they ride out and away from the castle and to safety. Afterwards, with their assassination attempt having failed, Atsu says that she heard some raiders talking about Mad Goro having found a secret way out of the castle. Jubei is not happy after Atsu mentions the next time they go after the Oni. He's had enough. He's defied his clan and he's mad that they didn't get to save anyone. The people that he wanted to save have potentially now been killed, and all for Atsu's revenge. More arguing ensues, but ultimately Jubei tells Atsu he doesn't know her anymore, that she's just a stranger to him, and he leaves. Going to the Matsumai camp, Atsu finds out that Commander Wada has told the clan that she's not welcome there, and to leave. Needing to find a way inside, she heads under the bridge being built, and waits until nighttime in order to infiltrate the camp. Getting to the cells, she makes contact with Mad Goro, and upon attempting to leave with him after loosening a board in the wall, they're caught by Jubei. He tells her that he's to escort her out of Ishikari Plain. On the way out, however, the camp is attacked by the Oni raiders. Helping the Matsumai fight the raiders, Jubei realizes they are targeting the bridge, and Atsu goes to take out the Bohia crews firing on it. After they are dealt with, she spots her brother on the bridge, outnumbered. Rushing to him, they fight together and defeat the raiders. The Oni shows up and orders his men to fire on the bridge, knocking Atsu and Jubei into the river below. Swimming to shore, they return to the camp and find it completely deserted. Jubei says that the survivors will retreat to the northern camp. Atsu said something to the Oni whilst on the bridge that Jubei wants to know about, that he tried to burn her alive. She says that they pinned her to the tree with their father's sword, and the Oni set the tree alight. She says that this is why she cannot let it go. Jubei says that he will help her kill the Oni. Atsu tells Jubei that Mad Goro probably survived the attack since she loosened that board in the wall, so he is their best lead. But to find him, Jubei will head to the northern camp and ask if anyone knows where he went. He says to go there and tell them he, Lord Kitamori, is expecting her, so going to the camp, she enters the tent. Despite Atsu risking her life to try and defend the bridge, this donut thinks she's dangerous and doesn't trust her, comparing her to a wild animal. Sticking his neck out for her, Jubei says that all will be forgiven when they deliver the Oni's head to Wada, as all the Matsumai care about are results. Jubei has heard about a fire at a mountaintop shrine, so they go there and lo and behold, they find Mad Goro there, who is now claiming to be a spiritual man, a priest. It's not long after they find him, however, that some Ronin show up wanting his bounty. Fighting their way down the mountain, they learn from Goro that there is a hidden mine underneath the castle that they can use in order to gain access to it. He'd left a boat there on the coast, and after resting and eating, they use the boat to enter the mine. It goes up quite a bit, but they are able to scale the cliffs and enter another area where the prisoners are being forced to work. They can fight, so they take up arms, and with Atsu and Jubei, they storm the castle, taking the fight straight to the raiders. Atsu then splits from Jubei, who helps the prisoners, and after putting Kanto down, she confronts the Oni. He talks about how he feels discontented there, stuck building a castle for Lord Saito. He was a hero on the mainland, a general, but he says that Saito is his lord, and he'll serve his command. They fight, and the Oni, armed with a huge odachi, is certainly a tough opponent, but using the skills she has learned thus far, she is able to match him. At some point in the fight, the Oni grabs Atsu by the throat, and she removes his mask. Throwing her outside, they continue their fight, and he utilizes his first love, fire, in order to try and defeat her. With him defeated, Atsu forces him to crawl, and Jubei and Atsu both behead him. The Oni is dead. Another name has been crossed off of Atsu's hit list. In the aftermath of this, Atsu says that her hunt is not yet over. Jubei will go back to Matsumai High Command and report what's happened. Jubei says that after, he'll go back to their home, which he's not done since the night of the burning tree. They tell each other that neither of them are alone, and they depart. Now it's time to go after Saito's sons. Speaking of them, back at Saito's Koga fortress, Saito and his boys are talking about the Oni, the Kitsune, and the snake now being dead. The spider thinks that the night of the burning tree has come back to haunt them. Saito will have none of it though, and reminds him that Clan Matsumai serve the shogun, and not this so-called Onryo. Through more conversations with locals and interrogating bandits, Atsu was able to find out useful information about the Saito brothers. She learned from the owner of the Yotei Inn after liberating it that the Saito brothers have a grudge against a samurai in a place called Tokachi Range, who is an Odachi master, Yoshida. He had previously fought the brothers, hence the grudge, and the brothers love guns too. The best place for Atsu to start her search for the brothers is to seek out this Odachi master at his dojo at the base of Horosaru Falls. Yoshida has also had a bounty placed on his head for attempting to assassinate the brothers. Arriving at Master Yoshida's dojo, he tells Atsu that he's not accepting any more students. He recognizes her as the Onryo thanks to the names on her sash. He explains that he will only tell her what the Saito brothers did to him after she's gained his trust. He does eventually agree to teach her the way of the Odachi. It's a heavy beast of a weapon, and Atsu first needs to get used to the weight of it. With each swing and each block, she gets used to the sword. After fighting Yoshida's students and getting used to it sufficiently, the dojo is attacked by the Saito brothers' men, and this is a perfect opportunity to put her new Odachi skills to the test. Taking them all down, the dragon and spider have a camp up there on the ridge, so Yoshida and Atsu head for it. Scaling the cliffs, they find Saito's men there, and some are armed with muskets, and they also have a bohia gunner. With all of them dealt with, and with Yoshida now trusting Atsu, he tells her that the spider and the dragon want him dead because after Clan Matsumai had hunted the Saito brothers for over a year, they walked into a storm of gunfire in which 100 Matsumai samurai fell. When the spider was walking around the battlefield executing the wounded, Yoshida waited still and swung his Odachi at the spider, almost killing him. Yoshida fled whilst being shot at by Saito's men. Because of their humiliation at the hands of Master Yoshida, they dedicated themselves to ruining Yoshida. Atsu tells Yoshida about her own motivations for destroying the Yotei Six, and he tells her that last he'd heard, the dragon and the spider were trading with the Russians in the north. Thanking him for the lessons, Atsu heads back home to plan her next move. She finds Jubei there. He's finally returned home. After some reminiscing and talking about the night of the burning tree, they agree they shouldn't shy away from talking about it with others as it will honour the memory of their mother and father. Oyuki shows up, and upon telling her that Jubei is her brother, Oyuki is surprised to see him and says that he grew up. He's naturally quite confused, as he says that he'd remember meeting Oyuki, and then she drops the bombshell, that she is the kitsune that was there that night. He's shocked, and Atsu explains what happened in Teshio Ridge, and that she's forgiven Oyuki for what happened to her and Jubei's parents. He's angry that Atsu invited a member of the Yotei Six to their home, saying that Atsu was willing to sacrifice everything and everyone to kill the Oni. Jubei reaches for his katana, but Oyuki says that she can still be of use with information about Saito. She says that he and his sons are gathering their forces near the Oshima coast, and Jubei instantly knows that they're planning to attack Castle Matsumai, Jubei's home, so he leaves for the Oshima coast. Making her way to the Oshima Coast gatehouse, Atsu meets with Oyuki and they pass through the gate. A dying Matsumai samurai is on the other side, and he says that the spider and the dragon came out of nowhere, opening fire on the gatehouse. The man dies, and needing to find Jubei, they both ride and find a village that has been totally destroyed by the Saito brothers and their men. Jubei is there, alive, and he tells them that his men are waiting for them ahead. Joining with the Matsumai waiting there, this place, the Oshima Coast, is a war zone. Saito has an entire fleet and has launched a full-scale invasion. They assault Saito's forces and make their way up the beach. Stopping to work out how to proceed since this invasion is far larger than Matsumai High Command anticipated, Jubei starts to act reckless and was completely out of character. He then admits that there's someone back at the castle that he cares about, his family. He's calmed down and they suggest waiting until night in order to proceed. With the battle now calmed down, they head for the gate, and reaching it they find some hostages being ready to face a firing squad. Needing to act quickly, Atsu grabs a musket and Jubei distracts Saito's men. Firing on barrels, this causes a large explosion and they take out Saito's men. The young girl there is someone Jubei knows well, and he introduces Atsu to her, his daughter, Kiku. She's delighted that she has an aunt. It seems that Jubei never told Kiku that he had a sister, but that's understandable. Anyway, they all head through the gate and go to an overlook for Oshima Coast. Jubei says that he and Kiku will head to Matsumai Castle, and Atsu and Oyuki will split up and scout around the area. Before they do so, they speak about how Saito's siege will go on for months. They need to get to the dragon and spider quickly and kill them to prevent huge losses of human life, as this will likely weaken Saito's siege. Arriving at Matsumai Castle, she goes to speak with Jubei, and Kiku is arranging some flowers. She's feeling grief and despair after what happened at the camp, and says that she should learn how to fight, as Jubei may not be able to save her should this happen again. With Jubei having to report to Commander Wada, Atsu spends some quality time with her niece and does some more flower arranging. After, in the castle grounds, they see a commotion, and a settler is begging for medicine to treat her husband's leg. The samurai are refusing to give her any, saying that the soldiers need it. So, despite Atsu's reluctance, Kiku's resolve wins, and they sneak into the armory where they steal some medicine. Outside, they're caught but manage to get away with it, and Jubei is requesting Atsu's presence in the keep, so she goes there. Apparently, the dragon has captured a lighthouse on the far side of the harbour, and he's there now. Atsu says that this is her chance, but Commander Wada states that it's his war. She and Jubei manage to convince the commander to let the men storm the lighthouse, and Atsu will go after the dragon. Getting to the lighthouse, they face a tough fight heading up to it, as Saito forces are heavily armed. The dragon's ship starts to open fire, which means he knows that he's trapped. Gaining access to the lighthouse, she sees the dragon and he heads up the ladders. Finally able to confront him at the top, he headbutts her and this dazes her, and he jumps from the lighthouse into the sea below, swimming to escape via his ship. Atsu escapes the lighthouse as the ship destroys it, and she's annoyed that the dragon got away, although Jubei is happy that they managed to save the prisoners and took back the lighthouse. They shift their focus onto the other brother, the spider, saying that he may not be so cautious, and they hope that Oyuki managed to pick up his trail. Sometime later, Atsu meets Jubei and Oyuki at his home in Castle Matsumai. Oyuki tells him the spider has seized a number of samurai holdings during the invasion, and one of them in particular is now a brothel opium den, which was the estate of the great Lord Tamura. Jubei says that the spider does not have the same military value as his brother, but Atsu says that if they can capture the spider, they can use him as bait to draw his brother out. Oyuki suggests that she and Atsu will slip in there unnoticed, as a full-scale assault will only cause the spider to go into hiding. Later meeting Oyuki outside the estate, she says that the spider is putting on some kind of performance at the estate. Many will be there, but as they plan to sneak inside, Kiku shows up there. She says that she knows Lord Tamura's estate and can help them break in. Scouting the area, they need to target the guest houses, as this is where the performers will be getting ready. Kiku helps them break in and Atsu tells her to stay there. A woman there, a performer, is more than willing to help, as the spider badly beat the woman who worked there before her. She finds out that the performance that will be shown is the Night of the Burning Tree. So Atsu puts on a kimono and Onryo mask, entering the performance area where the spider is. The spider asks who she is and she gestures to her father's sword, and the spider instantly knows that this is the swordsmith's daughter. Cutting down all of his men and the spider himself, he cries for help. Atsu calls him pathetic, and he says that he'll be avenged by his father and his brother, and tells her to get it over with. She resists the urge to kill him, telling him that he's more useful to her alive, and Oyuki says that she'll have him taken to Castle Matsumai. Outside, Kiku sees Atsu covered in blood, shocked to learn that she killed them all. Back at Matsumai Castle, Jubei is not happy, as the capture of the spider was supposed to be quiet. He says that every time Atsu is near a member of the Yotei Six, he does not recognize her. Oyuki says that the Onryo will not bring her peace. Going to see the spider, they plan to stage a public execution to draw the dragon out, and they will ambush him when he tries. For some reason, Kiku went to speak with him, and after ordering her out, the spider goads and taunts them both, fully aware of the hold that him being alive and breathing has over them both, and the value that he has to the Matsumai clan. Outside, they reprimand Kiku and she apologizes. Nonetheless, Jubei is starting to realize that he can't shelter her from the war forever, and that he should start preparing her for it instead. Enlisting the help of Atsu and Oyuki, they help to prepare Kiku by training her. Meeting at the base of the mountain, Atsu helps Kiku learn how to fight. Afterwards, Oyuki shows up and Jubei tells him of a temple on the mountain. After a lesson in how to map areas she's been, they head up the mountain, picking mushrooms and light a fire at a camp, cooking them and drinking sake. So it's nearly the day of the spider's execution, so they head back to Castle Matsumai. On the day, they grab the spider and tie him to a post. Asking the spider where they should send his corpse, he says that his family have a burial ground near a shrine in Tokachi Range. Speaking with Jubei, they spot a ship approaching, but then another and another. Empty ships. It's Saito and his men are attacking a different part of the castle, which is completely exposed. His men have started their assault. Saito and the dragon approach just as Atsu is about to leave. He sighs when he sees his son tied to a post, humiliating for him. He leaves and tells the dragon to kill Atsu. Jubei, however, needs her help to get Kiku, who is in danger, but Atsu, filled with rage and not wanting to lose the opportunity to kill the dragon, abandons her brother, and Oyuki goes with him instead. The dragon frees his brother, and Atsu and the dragon fight while she has to avoid the spider's fire. Partway through the fight, she also has to avoid Bohia fire too. Eventually, though, she kills the dragon. The spider and his men flee as Atsu wipes the dragon's blood all over his name on the sash. Going to try and find Jubei, Kiku, and Oyuki, she fights through more of Saito's forces and finds the keep on fire and no sign of them anywhere. In the meantime, the spider has taken the dragon's body before Lord Saito. His favourite child is dead, and he tells the spider he's a failure. He tells the spider to lay his brother to rest, and walks away telling the spider to go drink himself to death. Atsu has gone to the temple to see if Jubei, Kiku, and Oyuki went there. But only Kiku is there, as Jubei had told her to run whilst he and Oyuki were holding off Saito's men. Atsu explains to her that the castle has fallen and that Jubei would want Kiku to be safe, so they flee Oshima Coast on horseback, arriving at the family home. Showing Kiku the grave of her grandparents, they get some rest. Later on, Atsu wakes after hearing Kiku shouting outside. She's training herself to fight, and she's very determined in that she wants to go and get her father back, to make Saito pay. She lashes out at Atsu for leaving Jubei and for not being there for him, and Atsu promises to fix this. Going to see Hanbei on Mount Yotei, Atsu tells him what happened. He says that revenge is Saito's weakness. He's willing to risk his war against the Matsumai in order to take his revenge on Atsu. Hanbei says the spider just lost the person closest to him, and this causes Atsu to recall what the spider said to her earlier, and that his family's burial grounds are nearby. Heading to the burial grounds, Atsu waits for the spider to arrive. He does eventually and honours his brother, and Atsu confronts him. She says that she's willing to spare him if he gives her answers. He says that they're alive, both Jubei and Oyuki. The spider isn't going to let the death of his brother at the hands of Atsu go unanswered, and he fires on her and runs off. Chasing him up the mountain, the two fight, and Atsu defeats the spider once again. He tells her to end it, but that killing blow does not come. Nonetheless, Atsu considers the spider defeated and crosses his name off of her list, stating that she has a new family now. He tells her that Saito is holding Jubei and Oyuki prisoner at his fortress, and that he'll take her to them. He's doing this in retaliation for his father abandoning him. He tells Atsu to meet him at the ferry crossing to the north. Returning home, Atsu tells Kiku that her father is alive, as is Oyuki. Atsu promises to save them, and Kiku apologizes to her for what she said. Meeting with the spider at the crossing, Atsu tells him that the spider is dead, but that he as a man has a chance to be something else. He says that he'll go back to the mainland to find out who he is without his father. After delivering Atsu to the base of the mountain, she has a hell of a climb in store, so she gets to work in scaling the cliffs. Meanwhile, Lord Saito at his fortress is lamenting his sons, and turns to Jubei and Oyuki, telling him he's heard they've been uncooperative. He demands to know where Atsu is. Saito grabs Oyuki, but Jubei tells him not to touch her. Seems he's warmed to her a bit. Saito says that Jubei is to face execution very soon, and that he has special plans for Oyuki. Atsu has reached the outer camp where prisoners are being forced to carry out labour, mining materials for explosives. Sneaking through, Atsu spots that Jubei is being led to face death by firing squad, so she needs to hurry. Hurrying to him, she manages to prevent his execution, and defeating all the guards there, she says that she does not care about killing Saito anymore, but Jubei says that she can't escape that night, and neither can he. He says that Saito had something special planned for Oyuki, so they need to save her. Fighting their way to her, they rescue her as she was about to be executed herself. She shares something worrying with her though. Saito is not there. He's waiting for them, at the place where it all began. Jubei and Atsu immediately know that this means they're home. Escaping the fortress on horseback, they eventually get home where, sure enough, that rat, Saito, is waiting for them. He's been forcing Kiku to play Zeni Hajiki and says that he used to play this with his own children when they were young. He thought that he'd outlive them. He says that all his children are gone now, but that he won't harm Kiku as his fight is with the ghost, Atsu, and he orders the rest of them to leave. With it now just her and Saito there, she asks if killing her family was worth it, to which he replies that creatures like them cannot resist the call of revenge. She responds by burning the sash with the names of the Yotei Six on it. This signals to Saito that Atsu has moved past this being about revenge for her, and it's only him that is consumed by it now. This enrages him and the two fight. She also taunts Saito by telling him that his own son, the spider, sold him out. Atsu is getting the better of him and they switch to katanas only. Saito gets the better of Atsu and Jubei runs to save his sister. He says they'll avenge their family together. However, at some point, Saito mortally wounds Jubei. With the night of the burning tree in her mind, she unleashes on Saito, defeating him. Atsu then pins him to the tree where he slowly dies an agonizing death. Jubei is experiencing the same as he passes away with his sister and daughter next to him, and Atsu tells him that Kiku will never be alone. For a moment after Jubei has passed, she sees Kiku as herself and embraces her, telling her that she's there for her. 6 months later, Atsu and Kiku are picking out mushrooms in a spot that she and Jubei used to forage when they were children. Collecting them, Kiku says that she's heard the Matsumai are rebuilding the castle now that Saito is no longer a threat. She says that people still leave offerings for the Onryo, hoping that she'll hunt down what's left of Clan Saito. Returning home, Oyuki has come to visit them and Atsu lays a flower at Jubei's grave, and Oyuki is teaching Kiku to play shamisen. The wolf that has accompanied Atsu occasionally during her hunt for the Yotei Six arrives, and Atsu thanks the wolf but says that her hunt is now over. The wolf leaves and the game then ends. Alright, so that was the plot of the game. It was quite long, I know, but let's now dive into some aspects of the world and the story to give more depth to it, starting with the fate of Jin Sakai. Alright, so if you don't want to have story spoilers for the first game and you want to play it for yourself, use the chapters to skip this section, as after this we'll not be talking about what happened in Tsushima again in this video. If you already know what happened in that game, then let's discuss Jin's fate. Those of you who played Tsushima will be aware that Jin Sakai was the personification of the real-life storm that was said to have prevented the Mongol invasion of Tsushima Island. In the game, he came up against Khotan Khan, cousin of Kublai and nephew of Genghis, and defeated the Mongol invasion with various allies on Tsushima Island, one of whom was a thief called Yuna. Anyway, when exploring the Oshima coast, Atsu can come across a Ronin at the castle Matsumai, where the Ronin tells her about some Ninetales being spotted in the area as they are looking for a special sword that has long been lost and that apparently has great power. At the base of a mountain shrine, Atsu finds a local storyteller, Ugetsu, who tells her that this storm blade is said to contain the power of a storm within it. Heading up the mountain, she comes across a fox that looks very different to the others she's seen on the island. Following it, she comes to a cavern which has a house there. This is a lost shinobi den. Entering, Atsu finds an old grappling hook, a stag helmet, and a saddle that looks like it carried its rider through countless battles. Moving on through the cavern, she finds it, the sword of Jin Sakai. However, she does not get to hold it for long as some Ninetales show up and the leader runs off with the sword. Defeating them, she comes out into a large open field with white flowers and searches the home there. Inside, Atsu finds adoption papers from when Lord Shimura adopted Jin, and also Yuna's knife. Moving through a door, she comes to a tree and is confronted by the Ninetales. Defeating the leader and all his men, she claims the sword. Approaching a gravestone there, the leaves blow away and Jin's ghost mask is laid there. This is the final resting place of Jin Sakai. With the sword in hand, Ugetsu tells Atsu all about Jin and the Mongol invasion, and that rumour has it he'd sailed over to Ezo when the second Mongol invasion hit Tsushima. Heading through the caves to fight Dojun, the Kitsune, we find an interesting piece of information about what Dojun was doing in terms of the wolfsbane poison. Dojun had heard about Jin Sakai and what had happened during the Mongol invasion, and also about Jin's use of wolfsbane as a poison, so he let Lord Saito know about it and devoted time and effort into pursuing this power. This note also describes Jin as the first shinobi. The skills he'd learned had been passed down from generation to generation, and the Ninetales, being shinobi themselves, had likely inherited Jin's techniques. This opens up a potential theory that Oyuki could actually be a descendant of Jin Sakai, although I'm not sure how much weight this one holds as she's actually from the mainland. Another final theory on this, before we move on, is that this fox is the spirit of Jin Sakai. The Edo period was considered to be one of the most important periods in Japan's long history. This was known as the Tokugawa period, when the shogunate ruling over Japan was the Tokugawa clan. The shogunate is essentially the military government in Japan, and the shogun is the leader, or the commander-in-chief, if you will. The Tokugawa shogunate was established by Ieyasu Tokugawa, and Japan was governed from Edo Castle in Edo, which is now modern-day Tokyo. The start of the Tokugawa shogunate was helped with the Battle of Sekigahara, which was the largest battle in Japanese feudal history, and one of the most important, as after this battle, the Tokugawa shogunate would go on to rule Japan for 2.5 centuries. It was a transformational era, as towards the end of this era, way after the events of this game, it saw Japan becoming much more receptive to outside influence, and it saw the end of Japan's isolationism, resulting in stronger economic growth. This period saw the Perry expedition, led by Commodore Matthew Perry in 1852, to try and forcibly open up Japan's ports to trade. Manifest Destiny, as it's known. This led to conflict inside a nation in which a large part of it were clinging on to their long-held customs and way of life, desperate for that not to be infiltrated by Western civilization, by the Christian faith, and lots of people fought back. If you are by any chance interested in a story from the latter end of the Edo period, I've done a video on the story of Rise of the Ronin set in this period, so go and check that one out. But let's stick to the current time period. We get a few flashbacks over the course of the game that paint a deeper narrative of what exactly happened in the lead up to the night of the burning tree. Prior to having children, the father of the family, Master Kengo, was a member of Clan Saito and was a master swordsmith. At one point, Clan Saito was destroyed, more on that shortly, and Master Kengo betrayed and deserted the clan. Over the years, he and his wife Yone would have 2 children, and of course, these 2 were Jubei and Atsu. Growing up, their parents would teach them many skills such as playing shamisen, forgery, combat training, and more. They would pass the time by playing games such as Zeni Hajiki. Yone herself was a very good Zeni Hajiki player and even managed to clean out a nearby gambling den according to its owner. Atsu would help at the stables nearby from time to time, and she and her brother would plant seeds in the hills near to their home which would grow into beautiful flowers over the years. Kengo had managed to build a good life and a nice home for his family, but as we know, this ideal life would be shattered that one fateful day. On this day, Jubei and Atsu were out collecting mushrooms, foraging, and they were confronted by a wolf, which was scared off by a gunshot. They were approached by the man that fired the shot, and this was Saito. Atsu asked Saito if his blade needed sharpening as their father was a swordsmith, and the mention of his name was music to Saito's ears. Near to the home, Jubei offered Saito to stay for dinner, and just hearing Saito's voice was enough to send shivers up Kengo and Yone's spines. Yone grabbed the children, and Kengo told Saito he's not his lord anymore, nor are they friends. Clan Saito fell, and that he is nothing but an outlaw now. Saito said that Kengo did not only desert the clan, but he convinced others to do the same. Kengo offered his life as payment in order to try and save his family, but Saito told him he must make an example, and it's at that point that the rest of the Yotei Six turned up. Whilst witnessing the Oni burning their home and beating their father, Jubei held a katana and said that he's the son, so he should protect the family. He ran at the Oni but failed to attack him, with the Oni grabbing him, choking him and dragging him off. Atsu then grabbed the sword, swiping at the Oni's face, breaking his mask, scarring his face and rendering him blind in his left eye. Their father tells them to run and to find their mother. The Oni then kills Kengo by driving a sword through his back. With Kengo dead, Atsu was grabbed by the Kitsune, who was Oyuki, and Saito was stringing up her mother. He hung her from the ginkgo tree, and Oyuki told Atsu not to look and to go with her, as she was trying to stop her watching the death of her mother. Saito ordered Oyuki to bring Atsu to him, but knowing full well that he intended to hang her from the tree too, she told her to run and cut her loose. She'd betrayed Saito, knowing full well that he may kill her for it. Running to try and find Jubei, they found each other, but Atsu told Jubei their mother was dead. They were caught by the dragon and the spider who shot Jubei, which is why Atsu thought that her brother was dead for years until they met by chance. Atsu is then taken back to the homestead where she is pinned to the ginkgo tree with her father's sword, and the Oni set the tree alight with the Yotei Six leaving Atsu to burn. She managed to pull herself free, and she went injured, hungry and alone to the mainland and to Osaka. What she didn't know is that she'd been possessed by the Onryo spirit, a ruthless spirit that wanders the land seeking vengeance. All she had with her was her father's sword, her mother's shamisen, and an unrelenting anger and thirst for revenge against the Yotei Six. She would eventually find strength in the memory of the burning ginkgo tree and spent the rest of her childhood in Osaka. After initially working in some stables, she became a mercenary for hire in the south, and she learned to kill during the war. She would use her father's sword to kill her enemies, and as part of the peasant infantry, she fought at the aforementioned Battle of Sekigahara, albeit on the losing side. Feeling that she was ready and that she was now strong enough to take revenge against the men who murdered her family, and also because the South were no longer in need of mercenaries, she returned home to Ezo, and this leads us into what happened during the events of the game. But let's look deeper into the Yotei Six. So what happened to Saito's family? Well, Saito's clan fell at the Battle of Nagashino, in which the daimyo, Oda Nobunaga, defeated the Takeda clan, who lost most of their men. After the fall of Clan Saito, they resorted to raiding villages as they were starving, and at that point, this is when Kengo and Yone deserted and abandoned the clan. Saito's 2 boys were with the clan, as was his very young daughter Fumi, who was just learning to walk. Many died of starvation, including young Fumi, and Saito's wife took her own life. Ever since Kengo's desertion, Saito vowed to take his revenge on Kengo, the man who used to be his good friend. Thirst for revenge consumed him. But onto the 5 other members of the Yotei Six. The snake's name was Yokuharu, and he was well known around the opium dens on the mainland and in Osaka. It said that he would frequent these opium dens and drink all the time as he suffered from a great pain that would never go away. He was considered to be gifted at being able to lure desperate people to join Saito's cause, which is why when he died, they were having trouble recruiting people. The Oni, on the other hand, was Lord Hyozo. All his life he'd known glory, but that was until the clan lost at the Battle of Nagashino. It was only until he was trapped under his horse and after he was shot by a peasant that he finally knew what it was like to be powerless and afraid. This is how the Oni came to be born. Oyuki, or the original Kitsune, was an innkeeper's daughter, but her family were different at night, in that they became warriors that served Clan Saito as knives in the dark, up until Clan Saito fell. Having lost everything, Oyuki went north with Saito, becoming the Kitsune. None of the Yotei Six, other than Saito, knew that she was a woman. She found that this power she had was appealing. During her time as the Kitsune, training up the shinobi, she found a young man abandoned by his mother and living off the land, and he was called Dojun, with Oyuki teaching him tricks so he could protect himself, with him eventually becoming one of the Nine Tails. After Oyuki defied Lord Saito by helping young Atsu escape, he branded her arm, forcing her to train new shinobi to serve him, and only him. She played along at first, and that was until she hatched a plot to use her shinobi against him. She told Dojun about her plan. However, she was betrayed by Dojun and was therefore cast out from the Nine Tails, with Saito placing Dojun in charge of them. After the night of the burning tree, before she was sent by Lord Saito to Teshio Ridge, Oyuki would occasionally ride past the family's homestead and would consider leaving flowers by it. Such was her guilt of that night. And finally, the Saito brothers, the Spider and the Dragon, Lord Saito's sons. The Spider, real name Sakichi Saito, actually wanted to be an actor, but his father put an end to that particular dream. He wanted the kind of attention that his brother received. The Dragon, on the other hand, a ruthless killer and Saito's firstborn child, was actually sick of having to constantly prove himself to his father. He actually envied the Spider, as he was actually free of the lofty expectations of Lord Saito, so they were both secretly envious of the other. As we found out in the game, the Yotei Six were outlaws that took over Ezo, under the pretense of helping the people there. It was under this pretense that he built his army, but Lord Saito only wished for power for himself, and it was never about freedom for anyone else at all. Lord Saito was opposed to the Shogun setting his eyes upon the north as he had done in the south, and the Shogun was using the Matsumai clan to help him achieve this. The Matsumai clan were founded in 1590 and were the daimyo, or feudal lords of the Matsumai domain in Edo. What Saito really had his own sights set on was him becoming the Shogun of the North. Despite the Matsumai wanting to oust Lord Saito, some of the locals were opposed to their efforts to modernize Ezo by building bridges, etc., with some paying nomad samurai known as Ronin to burn these bridges at night. But that's pretty much it for the story of Ghost of Yotei. As for DLC, given that Atsu's story is pretty much over, I would like to see a DLC of how Hanbei lost his arm to Lord Saito, perhaps with us playing as Hanbei. It's spoken about a couple of times, but never actually explained what he did to earn Saito's wrath. It doesn't make any sense to carry on Atsu's story now, as her revenge arc has been resolved and satisfied. Let me know what kind of DLC you would like to see down in the comments. I do know that, like Tsushima, there is set to be a Legends DLC dropping next year, so you've got that to look forward to if you enjoyed that one before. But if you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like and subscribe if you aren't already. Comment your thoughts down below, but for now, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.